Hey guys, this is Echo Soundworks with ADSR, and you are checking out a walkthrough and kind of a first look video of a equalizer plugin made by Sound Radix or Sound Radix, I'm not sure how that's pronounced, called SurferEQ2. I'm gonna pull it up on screen right now and we're gonna check it out. So this video, we're gonna go through, talk about the various controls. Hey guys, this is Echo Soundworks with ADSR, and you're checking out a kind of just an overview and a little bit of a first look video of SurferEQ2. Now this came out about 3.5 weeks ago at this point, but it's something that doesn't have a lot of, I guess, press about it. So we're gonna go through the different kind of unique and interesting features of this specific equalizer, as well as its general interface. It retails for about $199, so it's on the higher end of EQs, but it is a very good sounding equalizer. In my opinion, it rivals FabFilter Pro Q quite nicely, and it also does some things that no other equalizer does. So if you don't know who Sound Radix is, they probably are most famous for producing the 32 Lives plugin. So for all of us Mac users who didn't have Silent in 64-bit for like 26 years, we use that. But anyway, I digress. Let's check out this plugin. And in this video, we're gonna go over the different features, some of the cool, innovative features of it, as well as its basic tool set, and then look at it in action, and I'll give you my final thoughts on it. So I actually bought this with my own money. I didn't get a comp version of it, so this is actually my true own opinion. I don't work with Sound Radix at all. Now, when we go through this, we're gonna use it on some of the tracks in this little ditty that I started. So let's check that out. All right, so as you can see, it has a really nice visual representation on the screen. So the top half of it here, this is your graphical representation, and there are 7 bands on the Sound Radix SurferEQ2. And you can see that the bands are visible here and down here. Okay, the 2 that aren't on by default are gonna be the high pass and the low pass. And those are kind of for your surgical edits. But before we get into the actual controls, let me just start by saying what the interesting, innovative ideas and functions of the SurferEQ2 are, for those of you who don't want to wait till the end. The really cool thing, in my opinion, about this EQ is that it can surf or pitch track the fundamental frequency of monophonic melody or information. And you have different modes. You can actually have it just track the melody. You can have it surf by note. So you can input notes on your MIDI information, or you can have it be instrument mode, so you can really control what notes are being active in the EQ when. Now, this idea of surfing or pitch tracking, it really isn't actually just some weird marketing buzzword thing. It's actually really, really cool. So what will happen on a monophonic, it doesn't work on polyphonic, but on a monophonic thing, like this vocal lead here from Avoxa, or this one's actually from Serum. What we can do on some of these bands is we can activate this surf function, and it's going to follow the pitch. So for instance, let's say with this lead, let's say I wanted to boost some of the mid-range frequency here. Okay, so let's do that, and I can turn surf on. Now what it's gonna do, it's gonna boost by the control that I just set. Here's my plus value here for how much of a decibel boost we're getting at a certain frequency. And here's my kind of my Q factor over here, right? Narrow, and then I can set this range here with this section of the control. So what we can then do essentially is have it follow that fundamental. So by turning on surf, check this out. All right, so that first note, let's see what note we're actually playing, see how accurate it is. I'm playing a C3, and you can see when we bring back up the SurferEQ here, the first note is, it's reading it as a C5 in pitch. So it's going to surf and boost that frequency or that range of frequencies that we set with the band. This happens to be kind of the mids. It's going to surf and find that fundamental. So instead of just boosting it right here, and then as my note drifts up, because my melody's changing, and this is what's so damn cool about this plugin. So if we watch my melody here, so my melody's going from C down to G2, down to G2, down to F2. So F2 in frequency is around 350 hertz, whereas C3 is at 500 hertz. So with a typical conventional EQ, if you boost something at around 500 hertz, 600 hertz, whatever the case may be, when you move your melody around with the monophonic instrument, it's not going to follow that, so you're going to lose that boost. So this is really cool, and I've really been loving this feature. Now the real cool thing is you can actually change the mode in which it's surfing, and you have controls over how it surfs, and that's what has been added to the second version of this plugin. You have pitch tolerance, surf time, attack time, recovery time, so you can really dial in how quickly it is pitch tracking and surfing through the different frequencies. Now with these two bands here, with this one band in the middle, you also have this function that will allow you to add harmonics above and below the fundamental, which is really interesting. So check this out. So it's adding these short little spikes above it or below, depending on how you have it set. And that is really, really cool, because listen to the difference of this in the mix. And then we turn it just back to the normal EQ. Actually, I'll just turn it off. That's unfair because it's not a normal EQ. So here's just the lead. And here it is with harmonics above it. It's jumping out of the mix right there. So I have some high frequencies occurring above on the really low fundamental, so I can cut that out here. But you can see that here's my fundamental, and above that fundamental, so the harmonics, overtones, it's actually surfing with it. And that is a really cool feature, I think, and you can get extreme with it if you want. So as you can see, extreme settings on this EQ are still very musical, which is really nice. So let's go up to this next one up here, this blue one, and we'll turn this on. Make sure it's on. Now here is our gain control down here. Or, well, not our gain. This section is the frequency. So you can see the blue band moving through the spectrum up there. Now your gain is up here. So you have different shapes, right? You have bell curves, you have just overall boosts, and then you can control the shape of any of the curves you select with the different Q slopes here, which is kind of nice. So let's say I wanted to boost kind of my high mids here. So now, again, the surf function is incredible on this. So let's turn both on. Hear that difference? It's incredible to me. I really, really like how this plugin can manipulate a lead sound or a bass sound and actually really improve it. So let's check out some of the surf functions down here. So we can do the pitch threshold, which is happening in decibels, so we can control how sensitive it is. The pitch tolerance. The surf time, this is kind of like, you see it's reacting a little bit slow. I like it pretty quick. Then you have an attack time as well as recovery, which is kind of like a release. But those functions to me are incredible functions. So just to recap, it is a 7-band equalizer. You can control the bands by turning them on and off down here, and you can visually see each band up in the spectrum. Now, there's actually an interesting undo button and redo, so you can kind of A/B things very easily. So here is the stock setting right here, and turn on bands down here, and you can control the frequency either in these knobs or by just moving the dots on the graph. And you can control the cut, or the boost, or the cut of any frequency with this little section here, or alternatively drag up or down on the graph. And you can change the Q factor with these different slopes, and they will be different shape depending on what curve you choose. Now, this middle one has this interesting over the fundamental and below the fundamental, where it's kind of boosting the harmonics and overtones. So let's check how this works in now a sidechain setting. All right, and to look at that, let's look at a really common example where you would do some type of sidechain compression, maybe an LFO tool style effect if you're in 4 on the floor, to get your sub bass, your bass to fit with your kick a little bit better. Let's look at how the SurferEQ can address such a problem. All right, so what I like to do when I use the SurferEQ to do this is I like to run my audio or my MIDI track, whatever it is, I like to run it through the SurferEQ with pitch tracking on. So you can see the surfing's active. This cut is being applied to the different notes in the melody. Because when you go to the sidechain, it doesn't follow the pitch. So what we want to do here is I'm going to just bounce this in place right now. All right, so there it is, and that followed the SurferEQ that we had on with the pitch tracking. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to just copy and paste that SurferEQ onto the audio that I just created. So let's mute this. We'll turn contact off. So here is our sub bass. Now here's our kick. There's some fighting going on. So instead of using sidechain compression, which would actually, if you guys don't know, if you're absolute beginners or if you're not sure on how that works, sidechain compressor is great for this, but sometimes using something like the SurferEQ will be a little bit more beneficial in terms of keeping in parts of your mix intact with just its loudness. If I threw on a compressor and sidechain the input to the kick on this sub bass, what would happen is it's going to turn down the volume pretty drastically of the actual sub. It'd be kind of like quickly automating out the volume when the kick is hitting. The reason why you'd use a sidechain compressor over doing that is because it's way easier just to kind of automate that process as opposed to automation itself. Now with the SurferEQ though, if you have it set to sidechain in this instance, you're going to lose a little bit of volume, but not as much as a conventional sidechain compression setup. So all you have to do this is turn on sidechain by clicking here. Go up and choose the track you want to select. And this is audio 2. So now when we play this here, nothing's going to happen because I don't have the track, the kick track, which is telling our EQ to work. So let's check it out again. All right, so the surf is set to on right now in the sidechain. It will kind of surf around with it, but it's not going to surf on every hit of the sub, right? Because the kick isn't happening every time that the sub is. So you kind of lose your track, your surf, your pitch, right? So that's why I bounced it out. Now, what we can do here though, is so let's just turn off the surf. And then what I'm going to do is I want to turn down the pitch that my kick is pretty much living at, which is probably going to be about 70, 50, anywhere from 50, 65, 70 to 100 hertz, depending on the type of kick. But to figure that out, what we can do is let's just pop on another instance of the SurferEQ on the actual kick channel, or the kick track, and let's see what we have. So what we're going to do, let's just turn this off. So it looks like it's around 50. So what I want to do here is on this sub, I want to turn down, let's go back to the sub. Solo these. I want to turn this pitch down here. Let's turn it down to, we can do it either in the wheel, remember, or we can go down. Let's do about 54. So now it's starting to fit a little bit better with the kick. Let's take this off. So let's turn this up in frequency a little bit to about 60 hertz. See how that sounds? All right, so this is really cool because now I'm just losing that frequency right when the kick hits, but as the sub sustains past that, I have back to the normal frequency that we basically used before we bounced, which was using the pitch tracking, which is really cool. So let's listen to this all together now. There you guys go. There's a look at a really interesting equalizer. This one's not, it's popular, has a following, but it's not mainstream like some of the other EQs out there. And it's a really interesting option. So if you guys don't have an EQ, it is a little bit spendy at $199, but it is worth it in my opinion if you don't have an EQ. And if you're looking for this pitch tracking option, the fundamental manipulation where you can add overtones and harmonics below and above the fundamental, as well as the sidechain input, it is a really interesting EQ. If you guys have any questions or comments, let me know below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I am Echo Soundworks. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.